All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're cracking the code on a really, really important piece of medical documentation, Chapter 14 of the ICD 10-CM. This chapter covers everything from diabetes to malnutrition, and we're going to break it all down. It kind of sounds like a puzzle, right? But honestly, this is exactly what medical coders do all day, every day. You're part detective, part storyteller, piecing together a patient's journey using this universal language of codes. And today, we're going to unlock a few of the secrets of that language. So this is our playbook, Chapter 14. This section is just absolutely essential for coders because it deals with some of the most common diagnoses you're ever going to see. Think diabetes, obesity, you name it. Nailing this chapter is a non-negotiable skill. So here's our game plan. We'll start with why this whole coding thing matters so much. Then we'll build a really solid foundation in diabetes. After that, we'll get into the fun stuff, connecting causes with complications. We'll peek beyond diabetes, and then we'll put it all to the test with a final coding challenge. First things first, let's be super clear about what we're doing here. Medical coding isn't just about grabbing a number from a book. It's a discipline. It demands precision and accuracy because every single detail matters. Every single code you assign, well, it's like adding a new sentence to that patient's story. And this story, it influences everything from their treatment plan all the way to massive public health research projects. So the coder's job is to make sure that story is told with 100% accuracy. That's a huge responsibility. Okay, let's build on that. We are going to zoom in on the one condition coders see more than anything else from this chapter: diabetes mellitus. Seriously, if you can master this, you are well on your way to mastering this whole chapter. So, what are we talking about officially? Well, diabetes mellitus is a chronic disorder where the body has a really hard time metabolizing carbohydrates, protein, and fat. This is the bedrock definition that we're going to build everything else on top of. Now, what's really important to get is that there isn't just one type. You've got type 1, where it starts with code E10. That's when the body just fails to produce insulin. Then you have type 2, which you'll code with the E11 series. That's when the body either doesn't make enough insulin or just can't use it right. And then there's secondary diabetes, which is a whole different beast. It's caused by something else, like another disease or even a medication. And here we go. This is one of the biggest rules you absolutely have to know. If a doctor's note just says diabetes and doesn't specify which type, the official coding guideline is that you default to type 2. That means you're going to use a code from the E11 category. This is a super critical point that prevents any guesswork. Okay, this next idea is a total game changer. The coding system itself has a built-in assumption for the word with. It automatically presumes a causal link between diabetes and a whole list of other conditions. So if the documentation says something like diabetes and chronic kidney disease, you can often code them as being related, even if the doctor didn't explicitly write due to. This makes things so much more efficient and helps create cleaner, more consistent data. It's a rule that just streamlines the whole process. So we know the different types of diabetes, and we know about the power of that with convention. Now, it's time to learn how to connect the dots between the main diabetes code and all the other conditions it can lead to. This is where the real storytelling really begins. Okay, let's try a real-world example right from our source material. A patient has a diabetic cataract. Now, in this specific case, the chart notes tell us it's secondary diabetes, and it was caused by pancreatic cancer. So, where do you even start with that? We follow a really clear logic. First, you always code the underlying condition that caused the diabetes in the first place. In our example, that's the pancreatic cancer. Then you code the diabetes itself, making sure you pick the code that includes the specific complication, or manifestation, which in this case is the cataract. And there it is. This shows the logic perfectly. The right answer is actually two codes: C25.9 for the pancreatic malignancy, followed by E08.36, which is the code for secondary diabetes with a diabetic cataract. See how you're telling the complete story? The cancer led to the diabetes, which then led to the cataract. Beautiful. All right, let's level this up. Sometimes a single, really detailed diagnosis needs a whole team of codes just to describe it accurately. Here's our next challenge from the exercises. This diagnosis has three key pieces: the cause, which is type 1 diabetes, the complication, which is chronic kidney disease, and the severity, which is stage 4. How in the world do we capture all of that? So, the starting point, the absolute crucial first step, is to capture that main relationship. The code E1022 tells us two things all at once. One, the patient has type 1 diabetes, and two, it has caused chronic kidney disease. It's a powerful combination code.
But hold on, we're not done yet. E10.22 doesn't tell us the stage of the kidney disease. For that extra detail, the guidelines tell us to use an additional code. N18.4 specifically points to stage 4 chronic kidney disease. Now, with both of those codes together, the clinical picture is totally complete and precise.
Now that we've really got a handle on the logic for diabetes, the great news is that these exact same principles, coding the underlying condition and then using additional codes for more specifics, they apply across this entire chapter. Yeah, whether you're coding things like nutritional deficiencies or other metabolic disorders, the main principle is the same: capture the full story. For instance, if you're coding obesity, the diagnosis by itself isn't quite enough. You need to add more detail to give that crucial clinical context.
This is a perfect example. The guidelines are really clear that when a patient is diagnosed with overweight or obesity, you should also assign an additional code for their body mass index, or BMI, as long as it's documented, of course. This gives so much critical clinical information.
All right, it is time for the final report. Let's tackle one last complex case that's going to bring together everything we've learned so far about telling the complete patient story. Here we go. This single diagnosis is jam-packed with information. We've got anemia, we've got malnutrition with a specific severity, and we have the patient's BMI. We are definitely going to need multiple codes to get this one right. First, we knock out the primary diagnosis. D53.9 is the code for nutritional anemia unspecified. That's our starting point. Okay, next, we add that crucial context with code E44.0. This code specifies moderate protein-calorie malnutrition, and that adds a really important layer of detail that the first code just couldn't provide on its own. And finally, we add that key data point. Just like we saw with obesity, we have to code the BMI. Z68.1 represents a BMI that's 19.9 or less, which is categorized as underweight. Now, with these three codes together, we have painted a complete, accurate, and incredibly detailed picture of what's going on with this patient. And that really brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this chapter. This quote says it all. Your job as a coder isn't to find just one code. It's to use as many codes as it takes to tell the whole story. Never be afraid to be thorough. So, we've seen that coding is really a language of precision, of building a narrative from clinical facts. The rules are your grammar, and the codes are your vocabulary. The only question left is, now that you have the key, what patient stories will you unlock? Thanks for tuning in.